The original car had 15-inch wheels, and this car was going to be so much faster, we had to have bigger brakes. And finally, Jimmy relented and said, okay, if we have to have 18-inch wheels and tires, it's your problem to design the wheels to make the car within the era of the wheels. And that was the real pleasure of building this car, because instead of making all the compromises that we had to do at the beginning, rushing it through in 90 days, we took as much time as we wanted to make it right. And Jim would never compromise. Anything that we did that looked like it was going to take a little bit of extra time, he would take the time to do it right. And that's what's made this car such an enjoyable project, and has made me so proud to drive it, because it is really a fun automobile.
The modern dream car is brought to you by Superformance, complete Replicars. Yeah, it's a Superformance, and we've done these before, but this is Walt Stevens' Superformance. Now, Walt wanted something a little bit special. He likes to go in a straight line. So he bought himself a Ford crate motor, 514 inches, makes about 6 1/4 horse and about 650 foot-pounds of torque. He's got a Lintec transmission in there, which is good for 1,500 horsepower. So all in all, got a car that should go low tens. Now, Walt's wife became suspicious, wanted to know how much he spent on the car, and Walt said, "You're on a need-to-know basis, and you do not need to know." Smart guy, Walt. Well, she kept at him and kept at him. And then finally, he decided to tell her, it's $5,000. You could be looking at the fastest and the greatest $5,000 car on the planet. Now, the Superformance car is very malleable. There's a bunch of different ways that you can set this car up. But in Walt's case, what he wanted was the hairiest possible combination. Now, Superformance provides him with a set of headers for the 514, which is, for all intents and purposes, a bored-out 460. Now, the gearbox that he's got in here, made in Canada by Lintec, is guaranteed for 1,500 horsepower. However, with an independent rear suspension, Walt worries about the half shafts a little bit. Now, with this big Ford big block in the front, the car isn't as happy going around corners as I'd like it to be. But on the other hand, that's really not what this car is all about. This car is about getting from here to there in an extremely fast straight line. And man, oh man, when you open the throttle, it's pure joy. Now, if you normally drive a BMW M3 or, let's say, a Subaru STI, you're gonna get into something like this and tear your pantyhose, so it's probably not for you, not for the faint-hearted at all. But if you're used to running down the drag strip, and if you're used to what 550 foot-pounds of torque feels like, this is definitely the car for you. I wonder how fast we can build one of these things for ourselves. Well, now it's time for what turns out to be a pretty stupid question. Do you need a car like this? Well, there's no way you need a car like this. But do you want a car like this? Listen to this. I think it's clear. You want a car like this.
As Superformance, we really wanted the endorsement from Carroll Shelby. We have the honor to deal and work with him and bring his cars back to life again. This is a big, big honor for me, who's admired Carroll Shelby my whole life, and to come to America to be able to have the privilege of handling the Shelby brand it's just a, I can't even say it's a lifelong wish, because it's just more than that. These track events are really family days. Guys come out with their wives, their kids. It's a real enjoyable day. Get out in the fresh air and enjoy your Cobra, your Mark III, the new Daytona Coupe. It's a really enjoyable time.
Absolutely. Most of the times I ended up buying a motorhome so my wife would travel with me also. And she likes to travel in comfort, so that's a big plus there and all. And yeah, we try to make all the events because it's really just a social outing that you just can't find in other hobbies and things like this and all. And just the camaraderie and all. We usually, since we're from the Cajun country, we usually come down and we cook up some jambalaya for the whole crew and everything. And we just have a good social outing with all of our friends and family.
I hope it always stays with the family atmosphere. I like to keep it personal. We like to have good relationships with our dealers and the customers we meet on a continual basis, and I think it has grown into a bigger concern, but it still has a family, small-time feel.
I work for Roush and I've been attending these events for about 2 years now, and having been around the vehicles so much and talking about them, I decided it was about time that I get to experience what I think I'm telling the customers, to really get the seat of the pants feel for it. So I went to Superformance. Because of the relationship that we have with them, they're one of my single biggest customers for, actually their customers buying engines for the vehicles. I said, wouldn't it be a good idea if I maybe got one of these cars? And first they looked at me kind of funny, but then they kind of agreed that it might be a good thing since they, you know, we do work so well together with the premium products. So I got my own, and I'll tell you what, puts a big grin on my face all the time, and I can actually tell the customer what I'm feeling, so it's really kind of cool.
The recognition of people recognizing what the car is, especially people my age that recognize what the car is, it's great. I love it.
It's been fun. The nice thing is you get guys, as they learn about the car and they drive the cars more and more, they feel more comfortable, and then the car allows them, we can make the car quicker for them. As they progress, we can get the car to progress with them. It's all built in. Then adjustability on the car, the way they normally set up, it's good for normal street and most track stuff. But if you do go to sticky tires, then you've got to adjust the suspension, which you can do.
The Modern Dream Car is brought to you by Superformance, the world's greatest replicars. Well, it's not the first time you've seen us driving this Brock Coupe, but now it's called a Shelby Daytona Coupe. Owing to a licensing agreement between Superformance and Shelby Automobiles, now this becomes a car that's actually in the registry. Buy one, own a piece of Shelby history. This particular car is also shown with the Roush fuel injection setup.
Yeah, it's our 427 8-stack fuel injected engine. It's a Windsor-based 427 cubic inch engine. The beauty of it is we've marketed it as a plug-and-play unit, and that's exactly what it is. Spent a lot of time looking around at what everybody else was doing, and basically they were taking engines and bolting together systems that weren't really matched up, so the guys consequently weren't getting engines that really ran well. So we took a complete engine and offered it as a complete drop-in package, fully calibrated, you don't touch a thing, and away you go. So it's a real drivable, good-looking piece.
Let's take a look at what this car can do over the roads in Nevada, where they're just about perfectly made for one of these cars. What makes this particular coupe unique, other than it's the first time we've actually been able to call it a Shelby Daytona Coupe on Dream Car Garage, is this velocity stacked motor that Roush has put together. Guys are buying these things just because of the way they look, but the way the fuel injected motor actually works is brilliant. Here we are in 4th gear, we'll upshift to 5th and then to 6th. And we've got exactly 1700 RPM. We got a straight bit of road ahead of us. As we tip into the throttle, you can see that even though we're in top gear, the progression is very rapid. The throttle tip in is no problem at all. No lag, none of the problems that you'd find with low RPM in a carburetor. And then of course, you come down a couple of gears and stand on it. And you've got yourself a 500 horsepower barn burner. These cars are getting better and better as they come out of the factory. They're tight, this car with only 500 miles on it, and only the dealer attention to install the motor. There's no rattles, there's absolutely no sound in here that shouldn't be here. And of course, the sound that should be in here is the sound of this wonderful, wonderful motor. So there comes a time when everybody who drives a great car asks themselves, do you need a car like this? Well, nobody really needs a 2-seat 500 horsepower coupe. But do you want a car like this? Man, if you care about Shelby and you care about history, you've absolutely got to have a car like this. The Modern Dream Car is brought to you by Superformance, the world's greatest replicars. Bryce Adcock and his wife drove over from Los Angeles to the SAC meet in Las Vegas where we are today. Now, I particularly like this Superformance car because of the color. I think this with the black stripes is one of the best looking combinations that you can get. Also, make note of the Halibran wheels. They're polished and set the car off beautifully. But really, what's under the hood is what's special about this particular Mark III. So with 485 horsepower on tap, it's certainly not discernible from 500. But if there's a certain tractability in this engine that we can use in this Mark III, we're going to be able to find out about it in these mountains just behind me. So let's take the thing for a ride. Now, this whole amalgamation between Shelby automobiles and Superformance is actually a marriage made in heaven. Finally, they can get on to making these cars and making a lot more people's dreams come true. All of these cars are now going to be in the Shelby registry. When you buy a Superformance car or a Shelby car, you can buy them from either a Superformance dealer or a Shelby dealer. That makes the dealer network much bigger. Roush has basically become the official engine, so there's a whole package there as well that means reliability, durability, and of course Roush is now interested in making engines just for this car. Now, the whole thing about the smog motor is that in California, where Bryce is from, if you're going to get a special permit for one of these cars, it's going to happen on January 1st, and there's only 500 available. So Bryce actually landed his Superformance car in March. So he opted for the smog motor because he could get a certificate for the car almost immediately. Now, if you're going to take delivery of your Superformance, it's probably not going to be convenient for you to go out and get one of those 500 permits. Apparently, they sell out in an hour and a half. So it begs the question, do you need a Superformance car with a carb motor from Roush? Well, if you live in California and you want to get going with your baby, yeah, I guess you do need one. But do you want one? Well, there's no reason not to, that's for sure. With the extra torque from the bottom end, this car just became a lot more fun to drive. So yeah, baby, you want a car just like this.
I love to drive race cars, but I always wanted to build my own car. And from the very start, I knew that it had to be perceived value, and that's kind of what the Cobra was. Then we went into the Mustangs, and Icoca said, I want you to make a sport car out of the Mustang. I said, you can't make a mule outrun a racehorse, but sure enough, Phil Remington, all the guys did it, Al Dowd, and we won. We beat the Corvettes on the racetrack there for years with that. When we won the World Championship in '65, I started not to bring the cars home because it cost $1,000 a piece, and old race cars weren't worth anything then. I sold Bondurant one, sold 2 or 3 others. Spectre, the music promoter, bought one, and they tried to drive them on the street. They sent one to Tokyo. Some Japanese fella bought one, but the race cars would never have made a street car. And Jimmy Price and I have known each other for quite some time, and unbeknown to me, Jimmy had come and tried to make a deal with some of my people, and they hadn't contacted him back because they knew that some of the replica people were, pretty shady, and they just assumed that I thought that all of them were. So it went along for quite a while, and I decided I'd just take all those guys on. This went on for about a year, and Jimmy says, hey, let's sit down and work out a deal. And he's the only guy that stood up like a man and says, hey, Shelby, you created this. He spent a lot of time, he did it right, and I saw that they were building good stuff in South Africa. So I'm just proud to work with Jimmy on a lot of things. We're talking about several other projects together. I admire Jimmy for standing up. We have a wonderful relationship. Lance and I now are in business together, or our company and Lance's company?
Well, from my point of view, this deal makes a whole lot of sense, and it's made a whole lot of sense for many years. A lot of people have spoken to us and said, you know, when you're going to build the cars, you really should build the cars for Shelby automobiles. Building the cars just makes so much sense. We've got a large manufacturing facility in South Africa. To date, the most successful replica manufacturer in the world by far. No real comparison to us in any way, shape or form. We have a following of about 2,400 owners and a very strong following. And our cars have been very successful in all forms of street driving, track driving.
The Modern Dream Car is brought to you by Superformance, the world's greatest replicars. There's absolutely no doubt about it. This is the most anticipated Superformance model ever. It's the GT40. Now, if you're used to Superformance, you're used to incredible quality. And this car is indeed incredible quality. Built with a steel spider with a glass body, just exactly like the original. In fact, 80% of the parts off the original car will bolt on and off this car. It's not a pre-production prototype though. You can have it in any color you want, although at this time, if you want one, you're going to be on a waiting list that's nearly a year long, and it's just going to get longer. So we thought we'd come to Road Atlanta. As you can hear in the background, this really is the place in the East where all of these fantastic cars show up, and we've actually seen GT40s here. So we thought, what better place than to take our first drive in the Superformance in Road Atlanta. Over the road, you're very familiar with the Roush power. The shifter seems kind of long in its throws, but that's the way it would have been back in the day, and you instantly become used to it. Dogleg first gear engaged and you roll out, and this thing is awesome. It's meant to be on an open road. It's not meant to be driven around a parking lot. In fact, the function of driving around in a parking lot is almost useless. There's nowhere to put anything outside a couple of side door pockets, which are good enough for a set of keys, a cell phone, and perhaps a transponder, and that's about it. This car is about enjoying yourself, driving for the sheer pleasure of driving. These cars represent the greatest moment in North American automobile history when they won at Le Mans. And you can feel every visceral sense of that as you drive this car. It doesn't sound like a rear-engine car. It sounds like a car with an engine 3 inches from your rear, which is exactly what it is. When you open up the throttles, the sucking sound through the Venturis is audible and clear. The exhaust kind of flows in behind that. It's a remarkable auditory sense. When you glance in the rearview mirror on downshifts, you can actually see little puffs as the carburetor is actually giving up some gas as you mix your way down through the throttle. This is a car you can become involved with for the rest of your life. And that's exactly what I plan to do. So it begs the question, do you need a car like this? You'd have to be a moron to say yes, but do you want a car like this? All you have to do is sit inside this car. Sit inside it, don't even start it, and you will be instantly converted. So watch it.